We're good? Okay. All right, we're back into public session. We do apologize for the lateness, but there were many details that had to be discussed in executive session, so we appreciate your patience so that we can get that done. So now, to resume the public session, we need to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And if our soon-to-be newly reappointed ex officio member, student member, Ms. Johnson would lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. By way of a reminder, the emergency locations are located to my right and to the audience's left. There's also another emergency exit directly to the rear of the building. If there is an emergency, please leave in an orderly fashion throughout these exits. A reminder also, this is a smoke-free school district. Smoking is not permitted in the building or anywhere on school grounds. Also, South Country is a hate-free and bully-free school district. Okay. First on the agenda is the consent agenda.
The administration recommends the approval of, sorry, I'm in the wrong place.
Okay. C 1 through 5.
Yep. The administration, I was in the right place. The administration recommends approval of consent agendas items C1 through C5.
Okay. We need a motion for C1 through C5. Is there a motion and a second? Motion by trustee Barry, seconded by trustee Trent. Any discussion? Discussion. I just have one quick question for our assistant superintendent of business. The financial reports, the balance of the treasurer's report, do you know when the board will be receiving the balance of the treasurer's report within the financial reports that we have here today?
So we're still working on the financial statements. So when those are prepared, you will have the final.
Okay. All righty. Thank you very much.
Yes.
All right. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. We can put them down. Seeing all hands raised, the motion passes unanimously. In that motion, we also reappointed student ex officio member Bree Johnson, who's back with us for a second consecutive year, so welcome back.
Thank you.
Give her a nice round of applause. She had tough shoes to fill with Mr. Frankie, who was with us two years ago,
Yeah,
and you've done a wonderful job, so we're really looking forward to having you back.
thank you.
Now, the superintendent was kind enough to remind me that this meeting has already gone late, and he doesn't want you to feel obligated that if you have homework to do or want to get back home to get to school early for tomorrow, that you can leave at any time.
Okay, thank you.
All right?
Thank you.
I indicated I had you back, and I do. But let me just say this about Ms. Johnson. Somehow, every time I visited the high school, she's around. Whether she's on a golf cart, tending to medical needs, or doing this or that, she's just a really impressive person. So I wanted to publicly acknowledge that. I've been so impressed already just
Thank
in
you.
my few interactions, and I appreciate the selfie you took with me. So.
Oh, yeah, me too. Thanks.
But welcome. I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
All right. Now we're up to item D, communication and announcements, and we begin with the superintendent's report.
Sure, thank you. I'm just going to switch over to the display here. As a teacher, I've always liked providing visuals for the public and for the Board of Trustees. So I'm going to begin with the great announcement, which was the fact that we were able to secure free lunch and breakfast for all of our students pre-K to 12 in our school district. This is basically a result of the due diligence of the business office and Mr. Key, who came on board and sort of heard us chirping about the fact we got to be a little bit more aggressive in trying to make this happen, and it worked out. It's we wish it would have worked out for day one of school, but I'll take it on day two. So I just want to acknowledge the business office, because this is fantastic certainly for the families that need it, but it just alleviates so much stress and so much unneeded sort of heartache among students and payments that it's fantastic. So thank you, business office, and that's really something that could be a source of our Clipper pride. Very quickly, just on an update on school safety. So our respective buildings have already administered fire drills, lockdown drills in some cases. I'm going to be providing more of an update to the community and to the Board of Trustees at our next meeting. Just in full disclosure, school districts don't typically talk about their safety plans to the public for obvious reasons. There are certain things that we keep to ourselves, and we do share our plans with law enforcement, but there's a lot of details that it's not a result of us not being transparent. It's just things we don't talk about in public. That said, we do take safety very seriously. Anytime a threat's made to a school or a student mentions a weapon, or especially the word gun, or draws a gun, or writes something about a gun, law enforcement will be contacted. And I want to assure the Board of Trustees that that is our sort of operating procedures, because I don't want the district to be making any judgment calls when it comes to those things. That's for law enforcement. The school will respond and pursuant to our code of conduct, and we'll issue our consequences based on the evidence and information we have. But police are always involved, even if we think it's a benign threat, even if we think it's unsubstantiated. Once there's trigger words used, law enforcement is contacted. And I just wanted to reassure the Board of Trustees and the public that that is our practice. We have more subsequent meetings to have with law enforcement, including a safety audit we'll be doing on our campus in conjunction with law enforcement. And we're going to be doing some more extensive drills, like full evacuation drills, because in the best case scenario, it's a monumental waste of time, because we won't have to ever worry about an emergency. However, preparedness is key. We should always be prepared for the unlikely. So, I just wanted to reassure the community that we're on it, and we're really paying special attention to school safety. On a brighter note, we had a fantastic opening to our school year, which starts with Superintendent's Conference Days. Our staff participated in professional learning that ranged in topics from restorative practices to departmental meetings, training on the various platforms that we use in our district, instructional platforms such as Envision for Business Office, eSchool, Google Classroom, Amplify, GoGuardian, and Link It, and of course STEM meetings for all grade levels K to 12. So in all, we also provided training to our TAs and monitors and aides on how best to support our students who have IEPs and 504 plans. I had the good fortune of stopping in on some of those trainings, so I just wanted to publicly acknowledge everyone who participated, from our administrative council to our cabinet members, to our teachers, BTA, everyone who kind of played a part in these days. It really was a great experience, and these are just some snapshots from some of the trainings we did. So I was really pleased with the opening of our schools in that regard, but even more pleased when it comes to the opening of the 2022-2023 school year. In all estimation, if you look at it holistically, we had a fantastic start to our schools, opening to our schools. Sure, no opening is perfect. There were some buses that were delayed. We had some issues with ID cards at the secondary schools. We had some issues at South Haven with arrival, just because of the sheer number of people who use South Haven. And all these things are kind of being worked out. But when you look at it holistically, it was a pretty fantastic opening. And I will make this sort of a confession. Kids have already made a couple of poor choices, and we've responded to it. But in all, in walking around the buildings, the vibe has been really positive. I'm really happy with what I'm seeing, just in terms of staff. And I think people are just happy to be back, and as we approach normalcy. And more than normalcy, we have an opportunity to redefine what normal is this year. So I'm super excited about that. And our students are already getting accolades. So a lot of our AP students have gotten accolades from the College Board. All this information is available on our website. Too many kids named personally, but these are just some of the things that I captured just in the last couple of days that have been happening. We've also been very pleased with the opening of our athletic season. A couple of more pictures, some students who have gotten accolades for their athleticism. We have a lot of teams that are undefeated up to this point. Some people think I'm a lucky charm because whenever I show up, the teams tend to win. That puts a lot of pressure on me. So, but I'm going to continue going out to the games. I haven't gotten to all the sports that I want to, but I promise that I'm going to make my rounds and make sure I see all of our student athletes in competition. What I will say is I've been really pleased at the sportsmanship, the level of competitiveness that I see. It's a lot to be proud of, so I just wanted to share that as well. In addition, Selfies with the Superintendent has taken off. It's been fun. This was an idea that was brought to me by one of the trustees, who apparently had another source for the idea. But it's kind of a cool concept because obviously kids dig it, of all ages. And guess what? I was at Meet the Teacher Night at Belport Middle School, and the parents asked for a selfie with the superintendent. So I was very happy to oblige. So again, I think the volume of social media posts is going to diminish a little bit as the year progresses. I want to put that out there to the Board of Trustees and to the community. But by all means, I love capturing really special moments in our district, and there's a lot of them. So I'm really happy about that and super excited to just see a lot more great stuff happening as the year progresses. In terms of communication and transparency, I keep bringing this up. Obviously, you have 2 social media handles, Twitter and Instagram you can follow. It's kind of catching on. I had mentioned that I have a weekly update that I provide to district staff. That update's going to be available to the entire community, and I'm going to tell you how to obtain it in a second. But our Twitter handles have expanded. Various departments in our school district are using Twitter handles. We'll post these up on our website. And it's just cool to get information and updates from all the various departments, from our guidance departments, from our athletics, from our STEM director. Our elementary schools are jumping on board. So we see more and more of this, which I think is fantastic. And I'm also going to be offering the community an opportunity to meet me and to hear what I had to say to the district staff. We have scheduled a Meet the Superintendent night that will be hosted at Belport Middle School on October 6th. That's a Thursday evening. It's going to be at 7 o'clock, and I'm basically going to be sharing the presentation I made for my entire district staff. You get a chance to know a little bit about me, some of our philosophies on a lot of things, from instructional goals, restorative practices, and just sort of give you a sense of where we're at as a district. So I really invite all community members to attend. I promise my presentation will be fun. So I look forward to that happening and giving you another opportunity for the community to kind of be in the know and be communicative. In terms of the Superintendent's Corner, a weekly update, our website does have a site on it that's called Superintendent's Corner. If you press the link on the top that says District Office, it'll open up a page, and on that page, you'll see a little link that says Superintendent's Corner. We made it even easier because right on our home page, there's a quick link that leads you to the Superintendent's Corner. When you hit that link, it opens up the Superintendent's Corner. I hate that picture, but
When are you taking a new one?
I'll take a new one eventually.
You hate the picture every time you show it.
I know. So just so you know, I've been on a South Country diet. I've lost 20 pounds since I've taken it. But yeah, so basically the corner has just a monthly update that's always going to be posted up there, and there's a PDF so you can access it in Spanish. In addition to that, my contact information is there for trustees or for community members to use. I do want to encourage community members that are here who may be watching that if you shoot an email, it's really important that you include Ms. Ciafaletti, who works with me on those emails. The sheer volume of emails I get sometimes becomes unmanageable, but she's extremely good at just pointing out the fact that I haven't responded to an email. And there are times that she may be able to respond if she has the capacity to do so. And it's not because I don't want to respond personally, but if it's something that can be resolved quickly, she's going to do that. So I encourage people who want to reach out to me to contact us both should you have a concern. My Twitter feed is also available in the Superintendent's Corner, as well as my weekly update is now up on our website. This is a weekly update that's kind of a stream of consciousness. Some people would call it a blog. I post it to the district staff every Friday. Certainly by Monday, it will be posted for the community in our website, and I'll keep an archive of all my updates. No one's required to read it, including district staff, but it basically is just sort of me capturing the week and talking about value statements and just kind of keeping in touch with all of our employees. We have close to 900 employees in our district. We have 4,004 students and their respective families. So that's the best way I can forge a relationship and be communicative with everybody. So please take advantage of our website. Again, there's a quick link right on our homepage that says Superintendent's Corner that will have all this information. All right, so one thing before, and I'm sorry if I've been long-winded, we also have a Center of Excellence induction ceremony that's happening Wednesday, September 28th. This is where Belport High School sort of acknowledges students for their academic achievements. And these are students who come from underrepresented groups, who are college-bound but don't have the resources or family members who really can help in their pursuit of their college sort of aspirations. So we sort of acknowledge these students in what's called a Center of Excellence induction ceremony. That's happening on Wednesday, September 28th. Really excited about that. I talked about our social media, the Meet the Superintendent night. And finally, I just want to give a pre-K enrollment update. So we are fully enrolled in our pre-K program. We have 90 kids who are attending our full-day program. We have 12 children in our AM half-day program and 13 kids in our afternoon program, meaning there's still openings in our AM and PM program. So if you're interested in registering, a pre-K student in our program, we do have space in our part-time programs. And again, I want to welcome Bree. I don't know if you have any updates. If this is
Bryn.
your, I called you Bree. Bryn, I know who you are.
You got it before.
My apologies. But I don't know if there's anything you want to share at this point.
Yes, I did.
Awesome.
Thank you guys for having me back with the board this year. It's a pleasure to serve as the liaison between the students and the board to keep everyone in the loop with what is going on at our school. Going back to July 9th, the Student Council ran the South Country Education Foundation fundraiser. Student Council members set up the event in the morning, and throughout the event, the students served food, and the day after, we all cleaned up from the event. On Friday, September 9th, students gathered in the senior courtyard for the ice cream social. This event was put on by the Student Council. We served ice cream, Italian ices. We had an amazing turnout, and it was really nice to see everyone catching up after a summer away from each other. Our first Student Council meeting was yesterday after school. We saw many new faces, talked about various fundraisers, and discussed homecoming, which is coming up on October 22nd. Athletics have been going very well after school. Our campus is very busy with games, and our athletes are super excited to play, and they have been spreading their Clipper pride around our campus. Tomorrow we have a home tennis match at 4, Friday JV boys and girls soccer at 4, and Saturday a very big football game at 2 home on the Joseph Field against Lindenhurst. This is the same matchup from the Suffolk County Championship last year, so they need all the support they can get. I also wanted to say that students are loving the selfies with Mr. Santana and love being included in a selfie. It's great to see the positivity and Clipper Pride his Instagram spreads. Speaking of Instagram, before also we have a Bellport Student Council Instagram if anyone would like to follow. It's basically an updated post of what we're doing, what events we're running, food drives, clothing drives for anyone who can help out. And I'm looking forward to another great year with the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Bryn.
All right, remainder of the trustees with their reports. Trustee Barry?
I'm just excited that we're off and running on a new year.
Thank you.
Not much, just, you know, it was a real nice opening this year. I skipped the Nassau Suffolk's legislative meeting this week because last night was back to school night, and one thing that struck me was the comments from so many of our staff at how enthusiastic and positive our students are this year, ready to learn, and I thought that was really, really encouraging. So, you know, I got positive vibes for a good year. So, that's it.
Trustee Kavanaugh?
I have nothing to report.
Okay. Raphael? Okay.
I would just ask, Mr. Santana, if you can include that PowerPoint in the superintendent's report on board docs.
Okay.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll do. Full disclosure, I updated pretty much up to the time of the meeting, so. Don't listen, Brandon, don't procrastinate. But sometimes I get new information, I try to be as contemporary as
Yeah.
possible, but I could certainly put, you know, a draft of it up.
Well, that slide where you showed how to get to your corner
Yep.
was helpful, and I like how you highlighted all of the things that you've been to, and you had pictures, and so I think that is probably important to have on board docs for people who are watching the meeting but can't see the screens. So.
Gotcha. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Trent. And Vice President Hayes?
In addition to the report about the students who are upbeat this year, everywhere I go and talk to people out in the community, there's just a sense of positivity and looking forward to the year, and glad to hear about the things that are going on in our district. So I just wanted to underscore that this is something that goes along with our, as the superintendent said, it's redefining normal. We're doing better than normal. So I'm happy to see that going on. I also wanted to thank the superintendent and our assistant superintendent with regard to the work done on the free breakfast and lunch, because this is something to me that's been very important. And at the end of our budget session last spring, found out that there was a little bit of extra money that the state would be sending to us, and the board had decided to apply it to the nutrition program. So not only are we going to have the nutrition program that we were hoping to have, which would be free breakfast, but we're also getting the lunch in there as well. And I'm really glad, that our students are going to be fed during the day so they can attend to all the good work in the classroom and the work after school, enjoying all the extracurricular programs that we have available. So, thanks so much.
Okay. And I would just like to echo the comments about the beginning of the sports season. I was able to attend the girls volleyball game one day last week, and I was just so impressed at the impeccable timing this team has, and I'm hopeful for many more good matches in that regard. Also attended Compass Unity virtually. We're still meeting with that group virtually, and this is the group that helps our students with alcohol, tobacco, and drug prevention. And so they too are off to a good start. So the positivity that the board has shared and the superintendent has shared was also experienced at the Compass Unity meeting. So I'm excited for their kickoff for their agenda for this year. And then, was it yesterday, Ms. Hayes? You and I attended, along with the superintendent, a demonstration that the district clerk put together. District clerk is in charge of all of the voting and special votes and the general election that we have in the school district. And so she is looking at modernizing our vote process, and she had a very good demonstration, and we were very pleased to see the work that you put together. So good luck with the upcoming vote on October 18th.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And that's it for the board reports. Anybody have any last minute? Okay. All right, guide to board meetings. Do we have any cards? If anybody wishes to address the board, you simply need to fill out a card with the district clerk and get your name on the agenda, and we'd be happy to hear what you would like us to hear. All right, so next we have on the agenda, items F, items for discussion and action. First item is the board priorities.
So, again, we had brought this up at our last board meeting, but we operate on 6 priorities, which are displayed on the screen, again, just as a point of reference. So again, these aren't goals or value statements that kind of guide our practice. At our last meeting, some of the trustees indicated that they may want to take a review of the priorities before their adoption. So I'm asking President Felice that, if anyone wants to provide any additional input in terms of the priorities, because I think it's important that we adopt them sooner than later, because then they sort of guide our strategic planning for the upcoming school year. So at this point, I open it up for discussion.
I have one typo.
Okay.
In the third priority, in time for the 2023-24 budget consideration. We've already done 22-23.
I would add that this is like a summation of what the priorities actually are. Am I correct?
No, those are the priorities, except it would be revised to indicate 2023.
Yeah, these were the priorities that were adopted last year for the last school year. This is what we have yet to adopt for this year.
Correct.
Okay, I thought that Mr. Santana had kind of just summed them down.
I did sum them down. I don't have it.
And this
for
is
tonight.
what it is, summed down.
This is all of them. No, those are the actual priorities. What you're thinking of is during the superintendent's conference day presentation, I did one sentence that captured what each priority said, which I don't have on this.
For some reason, I remember like specific.
That was in our last board meeting.
References
I
to-
talked about the things the district is currently practicing that speaks to each of the priorities.
Okay.
So we'll keep this, perhaps you can include these in the update tomorrow and give everybody one more cycle to put in any kind of recommendations that you have before the next meeting. And then those recommendations can be incorporated into the board priorities that we have so that they can be voted on September 28th. Does that sound fair? Okay?
So our next item for discussion is our capital reserve vote. I did prepare a slide for this. Just for the point of information, this is not our official campaign launching the capital vote, but I summarized some of the information that's pertinent and I feel the trustees should have as we go into campaign season and promoting this capital reserve vote that we'll be conducting on October 18th. Point of reference is to give you a little historical perspective. The Capital Reserve Fund was established in May of 2016 by voter approval for the purpose of funding in whole or in part capital improvements to the facilities of the district. Those are our buildings and grounds. Use of the funds requires approval of district voters, and so we've scheduled a special election for Tuesday, October 18th. As a reminder, this will be a paper election because we're not going to have access to voting machines due to the midterm elections. Included in the projects in this capital reserve vote, the projects included in the capital reserve vote will be paid by our capital reserve funds without cost to the taxpayers. I like to emphasize that. The projects are also state aidable, which means the district will receive reimbursement from New York State in the form of building aid for a portion of the cost of the projects. But basically, in summation of all the projects, we're considering this a safe and secure capital reserve vote, as we're looking to make safety upgrades that include replacing our turf field, which was used by various teams, and our PE classes, adding security cameras, and upgrading our security systems, including interior doors at the high school, upgrading our security door access system, and replacing handrails and staircases at the high school as they need to be updated. Basically, here are some of the details as to what the cost is. We are looking for approval of spending $2.6 million. Again, that's coming out of a reserve that school districts put aside to use for these purposes. Concerns with the turf field were brought up in prior board meetings in the prior school year. Full disclosure, the turf field has passed inspection, but it's past its expiration date, so to speak. So we want to be proactive to make sure student athletes don't get injured. And I'm not saying there's a potential for that now, but certainly we want to be proactive. The time has come to replace the field. And with any technology these days, things need to be upgraded. And so the shelf life of technology is not that long, especially when you're talking about digital camera systems, digital door access systems. So I just wanted to display this today as an initial sort of informational piece. We will be sending a newsletter out. I will be talking about the capital reserve vote at my superintendent's presentation October 6th, the week before the vote. But at this point, I ask President Felice if there's any questions or any discussion you want to have on the matter.
Okay. Trustee Pacini.
Without specifics, but general terms, do we have an idea, if approved, when this work will be started and finished? Is there like a wish list timeline here?
So that's a great question, Trustee Pacini. So the way it works is if in fact the capital reserve vote happens and it's approved, then we have to go to bid. Once we go to bid, we make a proposal to the state, and then the state has to approve all of our capital improvement projects. That's where there's an inherent delay, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
From what I understand as a superintendent, there are 2 people in New York State who do this approval process.
Which is up from 1 a few years ago, so.
Yeah, so it's up from 1, so that we're making progress. So once that approval process happens and we get the approval from the state, then you start the bid process and you start trying to get secure materials. We've all heard supply chain concerns in the news, so it's hard to guesstimate when this will be completed. The idea of having the vote in October and not waiting till like budget season is because we want to kind of get this process started as soon as possible because of the potential for a delay. In an ideal world, this work can at least be started by the start of the next subsequent school year.
Okay, so
Surely
the
it's not
spring
gonna-
team, the spring teams will be using the same field now.
Correct.
The field won't be done by the spring.
Yeah, I can say with a certain amount of certainty that it will not be done by the spring.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I had an additional question, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Do we know, without being, well, not that specific, but maybe we can get in the update, how much money's left in this reserve?
Yep.
after this, if this goes through. And since this was started in 16, I believe that leaves us just about 2 years left to spend the rest of it, right? So we have to spend it all within 10 years, right?
Yeah, I'll get clarification.
Yeah, so if that's the case, I'd like to see what's there and what's the plan for the rest of it, especially if projects are aidable. It will help us, even though probably not as much as we'd like, but it will aid us to some point in the budget gap we have with the current bond mismatch. So, and do we have a guess on what the aidable rate is on these projects? I'm sure they're all different.
I see Ms. Gee has her hand up.
Yeah, building aid is about 75%.
So it is that number for all of these projects? They're all about the same? Okay. And do we know, and how long is that paid out over?
Well, we're not going for a bond, so.
Correct, so
our
it's
own
gonna be
money,
one
so-
lump sum that following year?
Yes.
They don't pay, okay, that's what I wasn't sure even, okay. Got it, thank you.
To follow up on Mr. Buccini's question, the aidable money that's returned to the district, would it go back into the reserves or the general fund?
It's gonna be in the general fund.
General fund.
Because the reserve has the,
The reserve is in the general fund as well.
Okay.
but that, just so everybody understands, that reserve has to go away in 2 years.
So, and we could also do another reserve,
So can we, all right, that's a good question. Can we then go to the voters for another,
Yeah.
there's not a grace period between when one ends and one starts?
No, we can start another one.
Okay.
So when we've finished with this one, we can go and start another one.
Okay.
And that just requires a majority vote of the community?
Right.
Okay. Okay.
And that could be done in the regular budget cycle. It could be added on.
Yeah, it would be a proposition two whenever, whenever the board decides they want to do that.
Just to recap, I'm gonna include in our board update just the balance of our reserves, when we are, sort of the timeline in terms of when we have to use that money.
Yeah,
And
I'm most concerned, yeah, with when we have to, when the date is that it has to be zeroed out and what the balance is left over, because if there is, and I think there's probably a few $1 million left, because if I'm not mistaken, at first pass, this initial, before we had the budget shortfall with the original bond mismatch, I believe this project was estimated about 4.5 to 4.8 million. There were other projects that got cut out of it.
I thought we wanted to move money into the reserve to cover those projects.
No, the money's already there.
Okay.
So I'm trying to figure out, so I'm thinking there's probably a few $1 million left. We're gonna need to figure out what we're doing with that in terms of a capital project for the next budget cycle, because we probably should put something up in May, I would think. So we probably have to get planning. And I'm really thinking about this more of the fact of its revenue, even though it's not as much as we need, it is some revenue in terms of.
So revenue just for capital reserves. It's not going to be dealing with the mismatch. It's just.
So you're saying that,
Capital use.
but you're saying that the aidable portion of money has to go back into a capital fund and used for capital projects only?
This reserve is only for.
This reserve is, I'm
Right.
talking about the reimbursement from the state, the 75%. That goes in a general fund and we can use that as we see fit.
Yes,
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I want to generate revenue
yes.
out of additional bond work with money we already have.
But this is not bond work.
Well, correct, I keep saying bond work, you're right. Capital projects to create revenue in the terms of reimbursement, yes. Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to our next item of discussion, which is our legislative advocacy. As we've mentioned in prior meetings, it's important that our trustees and school district have a seat at the table when it comes to the legislative process. Again, I want to emphasize that while school district may be politically neutral, it's important that we kind of advocate for the district and our students, and that's where our advocacy begins and ends. We're just advocating for our school. We certainly don't subscribe to any political ideology or campaign or party. It's what's best for our kids. And I think it's important that we kind of participate in the process, at least have a seat where we can sort of offer opinions or be in the know in terms of projects that are happening in our community. So I'm asking that the board discuss the legislative process. We finally solidified members of our legislative committee, board members, but just have an open discussion as to what that might look like, so that the public kind of has an appreciation of what we're thinking.
All right, who'd like to begin? I'll ask one question before we begin. Did we reach out to those past members of the legislative committee from our various bargaining units, if they still have an interest in serving
Yes.
on the committee?
And so, right now, we have every position covered, including the BTA, the Administrative Association, Board of Education. You'll be chairing. We still haven't heard back from the BTAA, CSEA, and the SGA. We have a community member representation, we have PTA representation.
So then we're ready to call for our first meeting. We're gonna try and do it along with our subcommittee meetings that are going to begin in October.
Correct. I would suggest there's a nice open date on October 16th. Our committee meetings begin, I believe it's October 4th. And it's a Tuesday, Thursday meeting in 2 consecutive weeks, and then in the third week, there's an opening day.
And that's the date you'd like to?
It's just an open date in our school calendar,
Okay.
October 16th. But I opened the board to discussion just so that we kind of, I know we had brought up some things about IDAs and sort of our role or what we're looking to do.
All right. Anybody else want to start?
I'm not clear on what the question is.
It's not more of a question, so we've had discussions in terms of the legislative process and what board of trustees can do in terms of advocacy. I don't know if it would behoove the community or people here to kind of understand that we don't really have any skin in the game, but the fact that we can sit at the table and listen and offer opinions or express how decisions that are made by these organizations or IDAs impact our district, I think it's important to have that sort of function.
And I think the way it starts too, because we do have the New York State School Board Association that really looks at the overall agenda for school boards itself with relationship to funding for education. This is outside of that, but, you know, a component of it. It's still legislative, what we do with the School Board Association, but outside of that, with our various county, town, and local, for example, two of our schools are in an incorporated village. So the incorporated village of Bellport has ordinances that pertain only to those areas. So if there was an ordinance that was going to say, for example, there's no parking on Kramer or Station Road ever again, that would affect our school. So we would want to go and advocate in that regard as to how that would impact on us. So and any kind of legislation that's going to happen on the county level, the town level, that affects how we operate the school is something that we have talked about for a while, of having a presence, and either a member of the Board of Education along with an administrative staff show up at those meetings to make a presentation, to show that we're watching. That's something that we want to have the legislative committee, advance to. We started a legislative committee 2 years ago, or reactivated it, I should say.
Activated, there was never one prior to that.
There was never one prior. Okay, so we activated it 2 years ago. And so now to get it, advanced even further. That's what we're talking about for tonight.
So, I heard IDA be brought up. If we were going to advocate in any regard to that, I personally want to understand exactly how they affect us. So maybe if our business official can just walk us through how they affect school districts to make us more informed about, what side we want to be on, is for me very helpful.
You talking about in general or each project?
In general, just how.
We had that presentation from the attorneys.
Right,
But we
the
had,
attorney.
But
at the end of last year, we had,
It
what
was
was his name?
about a year ago.
I thought it was the end of the school year,
Yeah,
wasn't
In
it?
the spring.
the guy who came in.
Right, it was after.
Yeah,
that was that one.
That was our first meeting together.
Yes.
That was our
Yeah.
first meeting.
I'm sure
I
it's-
think, just if I may, I think specifically the town and IDA, or anything that's local, I think, for me, I view the legislative committee, to me, should be big picture, mostly with the state, right? It's about funding, it's about, advocacy. It's much to your point, what NYSBA does and the Nassau Suffolk School Board. I think the IDA issues specifically like the IDA should be handled directly by the board. And as I mentioned, executive session, we had a representative, and I know because it was me, and the business office would attend those meetings and things like that. I think they come up quickly. if you wait for a committee meeting, I can even go back to when we first found out about the budget mismatch for the bond issue last year. We couldn't wait for the committee, we had to meet with the legislators when they were available. So we had a representation from the board and the administration meet with our legislators. So I want to make sure that as we're going through, we're not handcuffing ourselves to committees and processes when they might not be all that nimble, right? There could be an IDA meeting in 2 days. I think you only get a few days' notice, right? I think
That is a great
it's like
point.
5 days' notice, so
Very
you're
short
gonna lose the opportunity
Yeah.
to have representation if you wait for committees and to discuss it first. So the way we did it in the past was, we took a position, the board would discuss whatever the issue was. Now, when I did it, it was specifically about, the tax abatements and within the IDA. And we were a voice to object, to say, this is why we have an issue. We're losing revenue, this is what's happening. And most of our meetings were about the extensions, let alone the initial, but we should be present at both types of meetings, whenever they come up. But we definitely need to have somebody who can certainly be a bit more nimble than a committee can, in my opinion.
So to Trustee Puccini's point, does the board want to have that kind of presence? Is that,
I
is that
agree.
where you want to see our legislative committee advance to?
Could I come in
Yes, Vice
first?
President Hayes?
Back just before our new superintendent came on board, I think we had a discussion about how all notices about IDAs, zoning issues, and all of that should be immediately given over to the law firm, our counsel's office, and have it reviewed, because the attorney who's in your office, who's an expert on these things, could very quickly let us know whether there's a legal issue that we need to address. And I just want to make sure that that process is in order.
So generally, those items would be reviewed by our office in consultation with the business office. The business office here is uniquely situated to make those determinations, but we can certainly guide and be a part of that as well.
So we'd like to just enhance what we have done in the past.
And I
Okay?
believe those notices are coming through to our office through your district clerk.
So I, as board president, since Mr. Puccini indicated when he was board president, he made himself available to attend those meetings, I will commit to the board that I will make myself available to the district to attend those meetings with a representative that the superintendent chooses. And certainly we'll get the process rolling.
It needs a resolution.
Okay?
It has to be an
Then
appointment through a resolution, because you're representing the board, so
Then we'll ask council
The way,
to-
the way we did it was, this way somebody can't just go on there and,
Yep.
make it however they want to do it, it's gotta be specific.
I'm glad to see you step up in this way. I do think this is one of the more important issues that we have to address, so thank
Okay.
you.
All right, you're welcome.
So could we get a resolution drafted for the next meeting?
Sure.
Okay.
Now, but those issues that are more more local, are we sending that to the legislative committee, or are we gonna talk about that as just one member?
Well, I think what Mr. Puccini raised, that if we have the luxury of time, yes, we'll bring it to the committee, but we don't want to hamstring ourselves if there's a short turnaround.
Okay.
This,
So-
my personal opinion is
Right.
that the IDA should not be under the purview of the legislative committee, it should be under the purview of the board and the board's representation
Okay.
solely. It directly affects revenue and how the board's represented, I just think it's a little different.
Okay.
And I think that on most local politics, because they're also, it's a relationship thing as well.
Okay. All right, so we'll get the ball rolling with what we have to do resolution-wise. And then we'll set that meeting, if there's an availability for that date, let's get that.
I'll
set
include
up.
tentative dates in my update.
Okay. All right, any other final comments on legislative advocacy? And certainly,
Yes.
whenever a presentation, go right ahead,
Yes.
Is it okay if I excuse myself?
by all means.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
I'll see you guys next meeting.
Okay.
She has a very heavy load of AP classes, I'm just saying.
Physics first period.
Oh.
Be awake.
Thank you.
All right, and certainly, whenever we are going to make a presentation to the IDA, we will make sure the board is aware, okay?
All right, fourth item of discussion, should be a brief one, but I just wanted to remind the board, and I think this has happened already, that new board members are required to attend workshops provided by the New York State School Boards Association. The new School Board Member Academy, as they call it, includes workshops on governance and fiscal oversight. Other board members are also welcome to attend these workshops that are provided by NYSBA. So I just wanted to kind of put it out there for the board. I know we have confirmation that our newest trustees have all registered for their mandated trainings. But I asked President Felice to open it up for discussion.
Okay, and I'll just start by saying I've attended a number of them over the years, many of us have. And so for the new members that have joined us, and even for seasoned members, there's always something new to learn. So if you have the time, by all means, and can avail yourself to it, I don't think you'll be sorry. All right?
I just have a comment.
Yes.
It's partially on the last topic, but maybe it can be worked in here. I don't know if the clerk may have gotten notice yet, but the Nassau Suffolk School Board is hosting a conference coming up, I believe it's next month, in regards to the wind energy initiatives on Long Island.
Okay.
I don't know the date. Did you get that notice?
I think so. Sarah's got, I think it's gonna be in the board update.
I figured it would be the update tomorrow.
Yes.
It's at the Cradle of Aviation Museum. I think it's sometime in the middle of October. It is important, and it goes back to the IDA discussion, because there is revenue coming to some school districts. I know, and it has to do with the length of the project across the ocean, like, because I don't know exactly where it's gonna be. I don't know a whole lot about it, which is why I'm probably gonna go. But I know, for instance, William Floyd is expecting revenue in the form of some sort of pilot. So there's some pilot money that may be available, depending on where your school district is associated with, where the width of the project, so to speak. So I don't know enough about it, but that's why I'm probably gonna attend that.
All right, so we'll look for that in tomorrow's update, if the clerk has it. All right, any other comments or questions about the NYSBA conferences? Okay.
Looking forward to it.
Well, yeah, I'm anxious to see how you react to them.
So, all right, our last item for discussion is the superintendent's evaluation. One of the very important tasks that the Board of Education is assigned to do is the evaluation of the superintendent. Contractually, criteria for such an evaluation tool must be adopted by the board by October 15th of this school year. So I just wanted to put it as an item of discussion to see where the board is at in terms of developing a tool for the superintendent's evaluation. And yes, it's strange talking about myself in the third person. It's certainly strange talking about your evaluation in public, but I just wanted to put it up as an item of discussion to see if where the board was at, if they've had an opportunity to look at the various tools available.
And so the board is aware, in the agenda meeting that we had with the superintendent, myself, and Vice President Hayes, just last Wednesday, we did discuss that perhaps having two meetings, one virtual, if we can have it virtual, we'll have to talk about that now. But just to introduce you to the document that we would be using for the superintendent evaluation, it is supplied to us by NYSBA. Was it sent out to the entire board? Or did
We have
just
to
get it?
approve it, do we not?
Yeah,
We have to approve
We have
it?
to approve it,
Okay.
and Mr. Santana has to agree to it as well.
Okay, all right, so we would just send a sample of what it would look like, okay. So, for those of us around the table who had participated in it before, it would be that document. For those who are new to the board, it is a widely distributed document that is used. We did make Mr. Santana aware of that document, so as soon as he has a chance to look at it and give us your feedback as to what you'd like to see, we will be scheduling something rather quickly or requesting an extension to a timeframe that we are up against. October 15th, you said?
Yeah, and that's based on the superintendent's contract, and I'm certainly amenable to give a little extra time if it's necessary.
Yes.
But, is there a way that we could maybe just get either in the update, or maybe easier would be an email to all board members with an attachment
Correct.
that has the sample there? I find opening the email with an attachment of things like this is easier than plowing through an update.
We can do both. I'll include it in the update tomorrow, sample rubric, and I'll also have Sarah send a separate email with an attachment.
And the document is interactive, so you can fill out your information on it, through your computer. And then there's a process of summarizing each person's evaluation into one, but we discussed that at the conclusion of everyone's findings, and then have a discussion with the superintendent after that. All right? So that'll be forthcoming. So take a look at that, and we will be discussing that further. Any other questions on the superintendent's evaluation? All right, we're up to item G. Board consent agenda, curriculum.
So administration recommends approval of curriculum items reflected in schedules G1 through G3.
Okay. Need a motion and a second for G1 through G3. Motion by trustee Kavanaugh, seconded by Vice President Hayes. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Seeing all hands raised, the motion passes unanimously. Next, H, consent agenda item for personnel.
Thank you. The administration recommends approval of personnel items reflected in schedules H1 through H11.
You know what? I just wanted to open up the whole document because it wasn't listed out. H1. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion that's needed for H1 through H11. Vice President Hayes making the motion, seconded by trustee Barry. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. Please, since all hands were raised, the motion passes unanimously.
So before we move on to our business agenda, I just want to acknowledge two appointments that we're making or we just made. The first appointment, I want to acknowledge Frank Pirro. If he could stand, he's here with his family. He's just recently appointed facilities director. He's here along with his wife, who happens to be a business official. So I'm sure Jennifer Segui and Ms. Pirro will have a lot to talk about. Mr. Pirro comes with a lot of experience. He's had practical experience in working in some of our capital improvement projects we've had in the district. He's familiar with some of our buildings. He has experience working on the contractor side as well as in the school side, coming from South Huntington School District. I think what I really was most impressed by Mr. Pirro's candidacy is just his story, how he's risen through the ranks and the various jobs and really pushed his way through hard work, perseverance, and diligence, which are all characteristics we want to have in a facilities director. But most importantly, is just having pride in our facilities and our buildings. That's what's important to me. I know we use a hashtag #ClipperPride all the time, but certainly it should be reflected in our work ethic and in our building. And I'm sure Mr. Freed was going to bring that sort of appreciation and sensitivity to our district. So I'm really happy for him to be joining our team. We have very similar mindsets. If only October 11th could come soon enough. But you have to do the right thing and finish up in South Huntington. But welcome to our district, and I want to acknowledge your family. You have a very lovely family. So what's up, kids?
Thank you so much.
And congratulations.
Yep. It's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the teachers is here that was appointed. I do want to sort of acknowledge her. Is Ms. Percoco is here. She's going to be doing E&L program as a leave replacement at Brookhaven, a very happy building. So I want to welcome Ms. Percoco. So congratulations to you. Thank you.
All right. Well, congratulations to you both. Welcome aboard.
Congratulations to us.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
Pirro comes at a very critical time.
Yes.
And he's wearing blue, Mr. Superintendent.
I
just
actually
wanted to
commented
point
on
that
it. He knows what he's doing.
out.
You
Okay.
have red.
You don't have a red suit?
No, I should have at least
The red
tie,
tie,
you know?
No,
welcome.
it's Clipper Pride includes a lot of blue.
Correct, which is a good color for me, so I'm happy about that. That's actually the only reason I applied to the school district.
Is that what that?
All right, so moving on to business agenda items. The administration recommends approval of business items reflected in schedules I-1 through I-11.
And before we call it, do you want to ask if Patrick wants to take his family home?
Oh, by all means, if you don't have to stay for the remainder of the meeting if you,
No, I would say.
talk about pressure.
Normally I would say when I feel bad.
You have no kids.
You don't have physics at first period tomorrow?
AP Physics.
And thank you, President Felice, for courtesy.
Yeah, well, I saw the little guy and I,
He's done.
yeah, thank you.
Little guys were wearing blue too, so
Yeah.
thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Congratulations. That was a good call, thank you.
All right, so we're back to
Yeah.
consent agenda for business I.
Yes, I'll repeat my prompt. The administration recommends approval of business items I-1 through I-11.
All right, need a motion and a second. Motion by trustee Trent, seconded by, anybody, trustee Kavanaugh. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of I-1 through 11, please raise your hands. Thank you, all hands were raised, so the motion passes unanimously. Now we're up to our final public commentary for any agenda item you'd like to talk about or non-agenda. We have no cards? All right. Then we have closing remarks by board members. Does anybody have any closing remarks? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn? A motion by
I
trustee Trent,
almost missed my.
seconded by trustee Barry. Please stand adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Count on you for that.